Welcome to the third lesson of Chapter 1, Sales Management in 6. In this module, we're going to look at the different types of specialization and how they impact on organizational structure. If these videos are helpful to you as a student, hit the subscribe button to join the channel, the like button to help promote it to other students, and the notification bell to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Before we take a look at different types of specialization, we first need to understand what specialization is. We have seen that all businesses are organized into groups of employees, and this assists with organizing and controlling employees and how they do their work. Each of these groups has a manager who is responsible for all the work that takes place in a specific group, and the way the group is organized is referred to as specialization. To achieve organizational sales objectives, the business can specialize in or focus on different elements. Simply put, specialization is a way of organizing a business's activities. In this module, we will be evaluating 5 different types of organizational specialization. But before we begin, just a few notes. Firstly, 4 of these organizational specializations will also be covered in your marketing textbook. There will be minor differences as marketing is more broadly focused, while here we will be looking at it from the perspective of sales management. Secondly, you may notice that some of the organigrams we use may look different to your textbook. That's because these drawings are simply examples. Students should not focus on studying the example, but rather an understanding on how the organizational specialization works so that they can draw an organizational specialization according to a case study. The first type of specialization that we will examine is geographic specialization. This is one which has a strong emphasis on geographic location, with salespeople tied to specific geographic territories. If we examine the organigram as serves as an example, we can note that there's a marketing director who has a national sales manager and some other managers that report to them. And the national sales manager then has 3 regional sales managers, each with their own province, in this case Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and Gauteng province. Those provinces then each have a team of salespeople that service that area. This is a type of specialization that is often gotten wrong by students, but we will examine why in the next section. Geographic specialization is often considered to be the simplest and most widely used basis for organizing a company's sales staff. If it is so simple, why do students so often get it wrong? It's an easy concept to understand. Students will often look at a case study. They will identify within the case study that there are provinces or regions mentioned within that case study, and when they see province or regions, they think geographical. It is not the fact that there's provinces or regions that define geographical, though. We need to look at the definition of geographical specialization. In geographic specialization, a company's sales force is given responsibility to sell all its products to all people or companies within a specific geographical sales territory. When you're looking at a case study and you think it might be geographical, always ask yourself these 2 questions. Firstly, are the salespeople selling all the products? If not, it cannot be geographic specialization. Secondly, are they selling to all the clients within the region that they're selling in? If there are different types of clients with different salespeople servicing them, it cannot be geographic specialization. Geographic specialization is, however, based on the fact that each salesperson will have their own sales territory and will report to a district or regional sales manager based on their region. There are several scenarios in which geographic specialization is applicable. The first is when our clients are widely dispersed over many geographical locations. Take a simple example, KFC. People all over South Africa eat KFC, and therefore KFC stores need to be distributed widely all over South Africa. A second example where we might want to use geographic specialization is when clients in similar industries tend to be located near one another. Here a good example would be the motor industry. If you look at the Eastern Cape, several manufacturers are all centered there. Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, Ford, etc. We will also use this when there are distinct regional differences in our client behavior that are apparent. This could be in the product that they use or the way they use the product. Take curry. In Cape Town, we eat curry, but we tend to eat a sweeter, milder curry. If you travel to Durban, people there like their curry really hot. Finally, we can also use geographic specialization when your geographic markets are large enough to justify special attention to that particular market. There are several advantages to geographic specialization. First and foremost, it is the easiest and simplest of all the specializations to design. Secondly, because it is decentralized, the structure is adaptable to changing needs, problems, buying patterns, service requirements, and competitive conditions in the regional markets. Furthermore, our travel time and our incurred costs are reduced as salespeople travel less. It also ensures better coverage of the entire market, as our salespeople are limited to a smaller geographical area and therefore forced to visit both large, medium, and small clients. Salespeople operate in smaller sales territories, which allows them closer contact with their clients and hence better understanding of their clients' needs. It also gives sales manager better control over the sales force and sales operations, as it allows us for easier planning and to compare salespeople's performance to things such as their sales potential in their sales territory. The firm can also meet local competition better, as this structure allows us to come up with different plans for different sales territories. And finally, local management can act more rapidly in servicing customer needs and problems. Geographic specialization does, however, come with its own unique set of disadvantages. Firstly, overhead costs increase as more levels of geographic management are established. It also becomes more difficult to coordinate the company's sales efforts when several sales divisions operate with autonomy or separate from each other. Salespeople sell the whole range of products of the company and can therefore not specialize on selling those products with which they are more familiar. Because different types of clients are found within a single area, it becomes more difficult for salespeople to satisfy a variety of client needs optimally because more specialization is required. And finally, the firm's administrative costs increase as it expands geographically. The second type of specialization that we will examine is product specialization. In product specialization, the company is built around products or product lines. Each product line or product has its own product manager with a team of salespeople focusing on that specific product or product line. In this example, we can see that within the Northern Cape, where we have a regional manager, we then have different sales managers, one for furniture, one for appliances, one for audiovisual, and each one of those managers has their own salespeople specializing in that product. By definition, product specialization is an organizational framework in which a business is organized in separate divisions, each focusing on a different product or service, or groups of products or services, and functioning as an individual unit within the company. So, when do we use product specialization? There are four main situations in which we would consider product specialization. The first is when a company frequently introduces new products and when its product lines become very large, complex, and diversified. A good example of this might be somebody like Yamaha. Diverse products, motorbikes, pianos, guitars, outboard motors, generators, etc., all very different. Second situation is when you have a variety of complex products that are sold. For example, the electronics industry, a company like Lenovo, everything from cell phones to laptops to servers, printers. The third situation is when you have many thousands of products that are sold. Here, a hardware wholesaler or retailer would make a good example. Imagine Builder's Warehouse with all its different departments, paint, plumbing, outdoor, electrical tools. And finally, where we have very dissimilar products that are sold. Caterpillar might make a good example here. Mainly, they started off selling earth-moving equipment. Then they diversified into shoes and clothing, and finally into cell phones. Some of these four situations may seem similar, but it's meant to be that way. Due to the fact that salespeople are now only selling a limited amount of products, they can now specialize fully in those products and become experts. Second advantage is that buyers can concentrate on one type of product at a time. This saves time with regards to purchasing process and product-related problems that can now be solved easier. The third advantage is that customers benefit from expert advice due to salespeople being specialists. Each product line is supervised by its own product or brand manager, allowing for more effective management. The sales activities with product specialization can be executed in a more focused manner along with other elements of marketing. And finally, increased sales success means better paid staff that are more motivated. When we examine the disadvantages of product specialization, we realize that most of them relate to the increased staff count. The first disadvantage is that two or more salespeople from the same company call on the same client. Some clients may dislike seeing multiple salespeople from the same company. Second disadvantage is that the additional sales managers required because of the increased specialization incur additional expenses to the company. And finally, there is an expensive duplication of sales efforts, which results in having more than one salesperson operating in the same geographical area. The third type of specialization is client specialization, often considered a more marketing-centric approach, as this recognizes core differences between different categories of clients, their purchasing processes, or the way that they use our products. If you look at the diagram, you will see that in this type of specialization, each type of client has a sales manager with a team of sales reps to service that type of client. We therefore define client specialization as being used when client needs and products differ greatly from one industry to another, and client groups are large enough to justify special attention. So when do we use client specialization? There are several different possible examples. We'll start off by looking at the example of our company selling to wholesalers, retailers, and also direct sales. Three different scenarios exist. Firstly, when we sell products that have widely different applications in different markets, or when we use different approaches when selling to different types of customers, such as wholesalers, retailers, and direct sales. Or finally, when we want to penetrate new markets. Possibly we need to reach a little further when looking for a good example of this. A great product to explain this would be polyurethane. Poly what, you ask? Polyurethane. A product we actually encounter every day but just don't realize it. It's a type of foam that's used in many different things. When you sit down on a chair, the chair is probably stuffed with polyurethane. When you climb into a taxi or into a car, underneath the material is polyurethane. When you wash the dishes and use that little sponge, that is made of polyurethane. Some of your clothes, such as yoga pants, etc., are also made of polyurethane. The soles of your shoes, also polyurethane. If you wear a watch and the bracelet around the watch seems to be made of some sort of plastic or rubber, that too is polyurethane. Many different industries sold here, many different types of clients, all needing different approaches to be sold to. The first advantage of client specialization is that only one salesperson calls on each client, which is consistent with the client orientation philosophy that underlies the marketing concept. Salespeople focusing on client needs help build good long-term relationships with them, and salespeople can render an exceptional service to clients with whom they come into contact regularly and whose needs they know and understand well. Finally, the structure allows salespeople and managers to identify and focus on key accounts, which improves overall sales. There are also several disadvantages to client specialization. Firstly, sales territories tend to overlap as different salespeople travel the same geographical area but serving different clients. This results in higher travel costs. This type of specialization is not very flexible. Salespeople who specialize in selling products to one industry may struggle to sell same products to another industry. Salespeople selling a wide range of sophisticated products may find it difficult to keep abreast of developments regarding those products. And salespeople have to sell all or most of the company's products so they don't become experts on any one particular product. The last disadvantage is that salespeople may have to call on technical support, which may not always be available. The next type of specialization is functional specialization. A type of specialization that's built around organizational structures that focus on specific different functions and the interaction between those functions within the organization. Functional specialization is defined as when an organization is focused on specialized functions and managers, formalized rules and regulations, and tasks that are grouped into rigid functional departments. In functional specialization, employees are organized according to the type of work or function that they do. When is functional specialization appropriate? It's best used when customers need to interact with various people with specialized skills, but who work for different functional departments. We may find this type of solution with big IT companies who sell a mixture of hardware, software, and networking equipment, each requiring their own specialized field, and maybe some staff trainers to train the clients on how to use the product. Or in the airline business if we're selling big airplanes, where we'll send in a team of engineers, financial specialists, pilots, marketers, etc. to market our product. So what are the advantages of functional specialization? Firstly, each function is staffed by experts, giving sales staff professional support, be it finance, technical, logistics, etc. Clients therefore also receive better and more comprehensive service due to the fact that the sales team is backed up by a group of experts. The next couple of advantages all relate to how companies deal with their resources, mainly people. Functional specialization allows companies to manage, utilize, and effectively allocate those resources to specific functions. When we examine the disadvantages of functional specialization, many of these disadvantages relate to the multiple communication channels and channels of reporting in such a structure. Firstly, sales staff receive orders from more than one manager, and this we refer to as weak unity of authority. This may lead to salespeople being overloaded or giving conflicting instructions from different managers. It is also difficult to manage an organization that specializes according to function. Keep in mind that the greater the number of executives with functional authority over the operational staff, the greater the chance of trouble to occur. And it also makes it very difficult to have effective coordination, especially in large corporations. The next type of specialization is the matrix specialization. This is one that often confuses students. We look at the organigram, it looks complicated, so many lines running in different directions, etc. And yet, oddly enough, often when students don't know which kind of specialization a company is, they pick the matrix. Maybe it's because if they don't understand it must be complicated and therefore it must be the matrix. In reality, matrix specialization within organizations are complex, but the basic premise or principles of the matrix specialization is actually quite simple. Let's look at what it is. To understand the matrix specialization, we need to understand its origins. The matrix specialization was born from the discipline of project management. What is it that makes projects special? Well, there are two main aspects that we look at. Firstly, projects have a definitive beginning, middle, and end. Secondly, in projects, we tend to bring together a team of people who perform various functions to complete the task together. A good example of this would be building a house. We bring together bricklayers, plumbers, electricians, roofers, all to complete the house, each having their own specialized function. This should strongly remind you of functional specialization, and this will become relevant later. So what is the definition of the matrix specialization? The matrix organization is essentially a combination of functional and product specialization. It is especially fitting for large companies with rapidly changing and technologically complex projects in new product development. All the firm's activities within these companies are focused on specific complex projects and integrating all functions into a cohesive team. Matrix specialization is generally used for project approaches that have a set beginning and an end. However, over time, this has been expanded into other uses as well. Other organizational structures are designed for vertical flow of information and have limited horizontal flow of information. Matrix specialization overcomes this by allowing the free flow of information both horizontally and vertically. For all its complexity, the matrix specialization does come with advantages. Firstly, it provides large firms with teams of experts to develop and market complex products. Secondly, it is very flexible and therefore allows quick responses to changes in the markets, simply shifting team members from one team to another to adapt to changes in the market. Thirdly, it encourages cooperation amongst different departments as they are put together in these teams. Also, the matrix organization functions effectively for complex projects and allows us to finalize them much faster. The last advantage is that it develops the skills of sales staff, in particular to be able to function as part of a team. When we examine the disadvantages of matrix specialization, we find that most of these disadvantages relate to the complexity of communication channels and the complexity of the line of authority within the matrix organization. The very first of the disadvantages is that each functional assistant has two managers. We've learned about this before in Principles of Organization. It's called weak unity of authority. Because so many people involved in the structure have two managers, this may lead to personal conflicts and can seriously disrupt operations if not carefully managed. Thirdly, there might be a power struggle between functional and project managers. And finally, it is very expensive and places additional demands on managers' time. This concludes our look at the different types of organizational specialization and therefore also brings to a close the end of Chapter 1. Before we move on to Chapter 2, we will do a video in which we will look at how students can approach a case study, different types of case studies, and use the information in a case study to draw an organogram if asked to do so in a test or an exam. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell.